Don't know when they'll allow fans back at NASCAR events, but when they do, Bob Pockrass at Fox will be there. And he'll be at the race 2 weeks from Sunday when NASCAR begins 7 races in 11 days. Bob's kind enough to join us right now. Bob, thanks so much for your time. First off, how are you and your family faring during all this?
We're doing good. We're doing all right. I actually am based now in New York City, so certainly different times up here, but I'm doing good.
Bob, is it hard for you? You know, we have a regular guest that's in the Jersey area that every time we talk about when sports start, and he keeps going, how can you bring this up with what's going on in the tennis centers, the hospital? Is it hard for you to figure out that NASCAR's getting rolling when you're in New York City? I mean, does it make it more difficult being in the circumstances you're in, looking at what NASCAR's deciding?
No, I don't think so. Maybe it's just because I'm immersed in the sport. And look, NASCAR, those teams do not get paid if they don't race. The tracks do not get money from TV if they don't race. And they have the ability with pretty much everybody who's on track or with protective gear, right? The pit crews and the driver, to believe that they can do it in a safe manner. And these teams also wouldn't get sponsorship probably if they don't race, right? Like, your sponsors aren't going to just pay them if there's no activity. So there's just so much, just from the financial ecosystem of the sport. I mean, just, you're talking about teams potentially going away if they don't get restarted in the next month or so. And I think that's an incentive to try to see if you can find a way to do this safely, and if you can, to get started.
He's Bob Pockrass. He covers NASCAR for Fox. Follow him on Twitter at Bob Pockrass. And you took me to where I wanted to go next. NASCAR has always been a little secretive, to say the least, about the finances, how much they make, the drivers, how much they make. Bob, as best we can tell, can race teams and can the sport pay their bills without fans in the stands? We've discussed this with other sports, the NBA, the NHL, baseball, thinking of starting back up or starting up without fans, and whether or not there's enough TV money to approach the break-even point. At best you can understand, can people tread water with just Fox and NBC's money, or is this still going to be a money loser until they can start selling tickets?
No, they can do it. So, for instance, the Dover racetrack is a public company, so they have to report their earnings still. And last year, Dover had 2 race weekends, and all the money they took in from the TV deal was $24.7 million. What they took in ticket sales was about $5 million, and what they sold as far as sponsorship and concessions was another $6.7 million. So, so their TV money, is more than 2/3 of their total revenue stream. And so they can certainly, but, if you don't have fans at the track, it's certainly less work you have to do as far as, hiring people and certain things. And you potentially could still do sponsorship for your races, certain signage and digital assets. So I think they can make it work. It's not the best, but I think the tracks can make it work. And the teams, a lot of these sponsors are doing, do these sponsorships to be on TV. So as long as the races are on TV, the sponsors will be potentially happy. The sponsors also are now looking for a lot more, as we talk about, digital assets in the sense of social posts and videos and those kinds of things. So if the teams can race and be on TV and also do this stuff socially, the fact that maybe a sponsor can't entertain people at the track, who knows if they'd have money to do that anyway, is it'll have an impact, but maybe not as much of an impact as you might think.
Bob, on that note, I'm just, because we were talking locally when the races run with all these races, from the local deals, who's going to jump on it because the companies aren't making money right now. How much are all of NASCAR's TV deals essentially still in place? Are there sponsors, are there openings there, or is basically once they start running, their deals with the networks just kick in?
Well, I have no idea about Fox's business as far as that goes, as far as advertising goes. But what NASCAR has told us is that the NASCAR pays the teams 5 days after a race. The bulk of that money comes from TV money, and the NASCAR says that money won't change. So as far as what NASCAR is giving the teams, it won't change, and so that they know that they'll get the full fee for the race as far as the purse money and what they get paid to participate. So I think that's a key thing, and it's just going to depend on the sponsor. It's sponsors. If you're a tax company, you want all your races before April 15th. Well, now maybe you're going to want some races, in the early summer, right? Because, that might be when people are now preparing their taxes. So, it has thrown the whole sponsorship thing up, made it a little bit crazy. There's going to be some races now. You're talking about 2 at Darlington the week of May 17th and an extra race at Charlotte on the week of May 24th. The NASCAR hasn't said which tracks those races are coming from, but they're going to let the teams know within the next week or two so that they can figure out sponsorship.
He's Bob Pockrass. He covers NASCAR for Fox Sports. Follow him on Twitter at Bob Pockrass. Well, listen, this has been debated before, whether or not NASCAR, through various ups and downs with ratings and what have you, should they race during the week and, have their own niche on television, if you will, and see whether they can attract the non-race fan. Well, here it is. We're going to have it. We're going to have, even though it's Memorial Day, we're going to have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday racing, Tuesday, Wednesday racing 1 week. Your thoughts on this? Obviously, everybody just wants to go back to work and they want to race. But, Bob, is this something that you think could go so well that we then have it in 2021 and beyond?
Possibly. I mean, I would have thought that before all this, I would have thought, I think weeknight races, either a Monday night race or a midweek race, like a Wednesday night series during the summer would work well. I don't know how much you're going to be able to tell from this, because, this is just such different times, what type of competition is there going to be, and and what are people looking for on TV now might be different than a year from now. But it certainly is, if you talk about night races during the week, it's about time that, I felt like NASCAR should have been doing this 5-10 years ago, but nobody wanted, no track wanted to give up a potential weekend of camping and, and kind of what they felt like were solid returns on race weekends to risk a midweek night race.
Would they, if they, going forward, Bob, if they do a Thursday night race, do you think the NASCAR crowd, if they went Thursday with the big race and then truck Xfinity, I know they wouldn't stay in the same numbers, but would they be able to reverse it and have any kind of success? Because the television money, as you mentioned, if it's 2/3, I got to think a Thursday night race is going to do a hell of a lot bigger number than a Sunday 1 o'clock race. So would they still try to, if they ever did this going forward, would it be the NASCAR race would be the start of a 3-day weekend, or do you think these would just be one-off races somewhere?
I think you could do it. You could do it either way. Do you start out on Monday night with like Xfinity, and then maybe Wednesday night trucks, Thursday night Cup, or do you go Thursday night Cup and then Friday, maybe a Friday truck Xfinity doubleheader on some weekends, or you look at, could you do Xfinity and truck on a Sunday and then bring back Cup on a Monday night? There's so many different ways that you can look at things, and and it just has to be strategic, because there are certain tracks that that rely on significant camping revenue. So do you not want to impact those? And and then you have to look at location, right? And could you can you do a Wednesday night race at Homestead? Would people travel to Homestead on that night? Maybe not, but could you do one in Charlotte? Could you do one in Texas? Maybe those are maybe more possible areas where you could do those type of things.
Bob, I read through everything that NASCAR released yesterday, and I'm trying to figure out what is going to be dramatically different besides the fact that the crew members are going to have masks and face shields in some occasions. What is going to be dramatically different? The spotters maybe aren't going to be all lined up in a row up top. They may be spread out throughout the stands, or the haulers aren't going to be lined up next to one another. They're going to use the whole infield, if you will, and spread the teams out a little bit. But is there anything that you noticed from what NASCAR implemented yesterday that's going to make it very different when they race?
Well, I mean, I would say the fact that there's no practice and there'll be no qualifying except for the 600 on Memorial Day. So, these drivers, they haven't been to Darlington and, since last September. They haven't been on the track in anything really in a couple of months. So, those first few laps, it's going to be interesting to see. And, there's going to be more problems with cars because, there's just going to, there's times in practice where you find an issue with your car that you're going to now find out in the race, and there's going to keep you, end your race early or force you to struggle. So I think that's going to be that's going to be the biggest challenge for teams, is the fact that there's no practice and pretty much no qualifying. So their first laps on the track will be when they race.
Bob, final question. Is there anybody, even off the record, in the sport that indicated to you this is too soon? Or has the whole sport been just clamoring and it's like, oh, thank goodness?
No, I mean, I think there's probably a person or two on each team, from what I hear, who's probably a little worried, and they're not really worried about themselves, but maybe they take care of an elderly person at home, and they don't know whether they should go, right? Because they don't potentially want to catch something and give it to one of their family members. So I think that, that is a concern. Certainly, there is no precedent, right? There's no,
right.
You haven't seen another sport try it yet and say, okay, they did it successfully, so this means that NASCAR can. So yeah, so there certainly is. And then, you look at, we talked about it, right? The financial structure of the sport, it urges them to go and race. And so, if you just look at it globally, you're like, wow, there's so much of an incentive to race that it'd be normal to have a concern about is everything being done to minimize risk. But I would say is that NASCAR, I mean, as a race, auto racing those events are about minimizing risk all the time, right? I mean, the teams rely on NASCAR to dictate, safety rules as far as pit crew members and the cars and everything. So they've already put their trust in NASCAR about how to put on a race, minimizing health risk. And now this is just kind of another arm to that.
Bob, once again, thanks for your time. Secondly, all the best to you and your family in the New York City area. Third, safe travels.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bob Pockrass covers NASCAR for Fox. And when NASCAR resumes racing, you'll be able to hear all of it right here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Follow Bob on Twitter at Bob Pockrass, Pockrass. Miller and Moulton as we approach 17 minutes before the top of the hour. Mark, does it feel right to you timing-wise? You and I had said it's going to be golf and NASCAR. In whatever order, they were going to be the first two. Golf's resuming mid-June. NASCAR's decided. Now, there are those that are saying, wait a minute, WWE's done some shows. UFC's got an event actually a week before NASCAR. They're starting back up again. But we said it would be NASCAR and golf. Turns out it's NASCAR about a month before golf. Does it feel right?
Boy, that's a great question, David. I don't know right now if I can sit there and say anything feels right, but somebody's got to start. At some point, we've got to get going, and I think I'm fine. I think NASCAR's plan to do the races, and we kind of said, I mean, we got this one as close to right as we get, David. Keep the races close to Charlotte. There's enough tracks around there. Move your schedule around initially so that you're not doing extensive travel and you're keeping these people basically to and from the race and they're back in their hometown. So I think that they've done a pretty decent job. Now, I read through it as well, David, and the one thing I didn't see, again, did you see any contingency plans if a driver gets it, they're out. If a crew member gets it, they're out. What are they doing to the teams? I mean, that's the only thing that I didn't really see is what happens if.
Yeah, I thought there's something in there about they're going to do the temperature test on people, so they're going to try to like monitor those that are there, but they don't specifically state. And if you're over a certain temperature or you start having symptoms, right? I didn't read that either. And once again, that goes back to every single league, tour, circuit, whatever, we feel has to answer this question first. What are you going to do when someone tests positive?
Because they will. I mean,
the odds are.
That's what David and I have been saying now for months. And NASCAR is a little different than the stick and ball sports because the stick and ball sports, all the players are young and really healthy. And I'm not saying that the NASCAR drivers are not, but I don't know if all the crews age-wise, I would imagine that your longevity being in the crew can be a little longer than that in a stick and ball sport. I would just think the average age of a NASCAR crew is far older than that of a professional basketball team.
And I thought I read where they're going to limit basically 16 people. Every NASCAR team can have 16 people.
And lower for the Xfinity and truck. And I don't know how much lower because it didn't say, but you are exactly right on 16.
So if you've got 40 cars in a race, do the math. In theory, there's 640 people, and then there's media. And then there's NASCAR officials. So you could see where all of a sudden you're dealing with roughly 1,000 people that are in and around the track for these races.